I often say that the music gets me. The music is what moves us from our heads to our hearts. And today, in particular, the music is getting to me. I do have a talk for you, but before we get to the Tao of Freedom, I feel that I should address some of what's going on in the country, just because I haven't in a while, not directly. That song, Oh Yaheya, that Jackson played, always takes me back to a scene from The West Wing, in which a Hispanic presidential candidate has to go to a traditionally black church in a black part of, I think it was LA. And just like the night before he goes out there, a child is shot. The child happens to be black. The shooter happens to be a police officer with a Hispanic name. And so Jimmy Smith's character, who is Hispanic, has to stand up and find something to say in the moment. And they sing that song first. And what he says is really the only part I remember is him just saying, I'm so tired. As a parent, as a person of color, he was just tired. And in this moment, I know that there are a lot of people out there who are both tired and scared, tired of being stuck in their homes, scared of what's going on in our country. And so I'll just remind you, because I'm not going to tell you what to think about it all or what to do. I will remind you that we are promised freedom under the law in our spiritual practice. We use the law of cause and effect to create the world that works for everyone. And in this moment, we're awakening to the idea that the world does not actually work for everyone. This past weekend in Texas, another gentleman was shot. They were peaceful protesters. I know they couldn't have been rioting because the man who was shot was pushing his girlfriend in her wheelchair. Kind of hard to riot when you're also trying to finagle a wheelchair. And so this woman lost her fiance and lost her caretaker. She is a quadruple amputee. And she was out there saying, Black Lives Matter, and please understand, Black bodies are not able to get as good health care as their white brothers and sisters. And so due to medical negligence, or I didn't get all the details, she ended up a quadruple amputee. And so I can see that many people are out there looking for hope, looking for something to believe in. Now, we at the Center for Spiritual Living know what we believe in. We believe in God and absolutely positively nothing else. There is only a single power and presence in the universe. And that might be confusing to people when I can go to the news, or I can even go to my next door neighbor and hear the divisiveness and hear the pain and the fear that's going on. So I'm just going to remind you of our teaching symbol. For those of you who have never seen it before, I'm just going to go over it really quick. This is how we think of how God works. It's both a picture of God to the best of our ability and a picture of the creative process. So what I want you to notice first is that there is a circle that goes around, I can't do this backwards. There's a circle that goes around the whole thing, which reminds us that there's only one of us. There is only one power and presence, and God lives in, through, and as all of us. In the top part, we have the divine ideals, just like Plato's divine ideals. They are the pure essence of love and peace and power that we usually, for shorthand, call spirit or God. This is something that is beyond words, actually. I cannot accurately describe what the ideals are. They are not unlike the Tao. And there's a saying that says, the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. So it's important to understand and to remember that what's going on up here when I say all is well and I believe in only God? I'm talking about this level. Now, the middle level, just don't worry about the V for a minute. The middle level is a little harder to picture because it's actually an active verb. It is the verb that says creation. It is the verb to create. And what happens is the divine ideal works its way down into the level of form, which is where we live. It works its way down to its ideal, but it has to work through each and every one of us, through everything that's stored in our subconscious or our conscious mind, everything that has ever been thought about what's true about people, what we call the race consciousness, which is or the collective unconsciousness, if you like Carl Jung. This is where it all has to filter through. So what the divine ideal is may not look recognizable at this level, but it's still divine. The V, it's actually backwards because I have this mirrored, but the V starts over here and comes down. And what happens is we have the divine ideal. It gets filtered through all of our belief systems, and then it comes into form. Now down here, it doesn't just wander about. Down here is us having an experience, or spirit having an experience. And right now, I would say that the divine is exploring the concept of love through its opposite, by exploring what it looks like when there doesn't seem to be love. And what we're supposed to do is have the experience and decide what it means to us so that we come to a higher thought. We come back into the divine ideal, having had an experience and learned something. In this side of the V, in our collective subconscious or whatever, we can add wisdom, we can read books, we can talk to other people, we can challenge our belief and see if it's accurate. But this is our teaching symbol. It is not divine. You will never see me kneel down to it or whatever. This is how we understand that God is all there is, and yes, things look crazy right now. And because it's all still one, that knowing that God is all there is actually what must win, what must become the truth of this country. I'll also point out to you that with all of this fear going on, we have a golden opportunity, because you see, without fear, there is no courage. This is where we get to live from our courage, where we get to say, I am scared of what's going on out there, and I am willing to look it right in the face and say, you're not bigger than my God. I don't care how big the stories get or how much trauma is going on out there. It is not bigger than the divine. And so we call the divine into, well, we become aware of the divine in what's going on. I say that this is the Great Awakening. And what people think they're protesting is not so much what's happening as the divine truth. What they're standing up for, what they are demonstrating, is the divine truth, and they're giving the cosmic no to that which they have experienced in the past. So this is actually spirit at work. This is actually a beautiful time to be alive. I just watched Hamilton for the third time. Don't do that if you have allergies, because you won't be able to breathe. But there's a line in there about the eyes of history are upon us. This is a pivotal time. This is a time when a lot of stuff is coming to the surface. It's a time of great healing, and we need everyone to stay in prayer for those who are suffering right now, no matter what you believe about who's right and who's wrong. The truth is that one great mind is actually showing up in the world as many, many, many different faces and opinions and experiences and ways of being in the world. And we don't have to make other people wrong in order to stand in our truth. So, this week's talk is supposed to be entitled The Tao of Freedom. Now, the Tao symbol is not something I happen to have a picture of right now, but it is fascinating to me. It speaks to me of wholeness and doing what you've heard me talk about as our shadow work. It is the two fish that are swimming kind of against each other. And within the white fish, there is a black eye, and within the black fish, there is a white eye. And this is a way of saying that the world exists in balance, that within every piece of darkness, there is light. Within every piece of light, there is a little bit of darkness. And we have to be willing to put our arms and our minds and our hearts out to embrace the whole. This is where our shadow work comes in really handy. We absolutely can love and embrace that part of us or that part of our society which we have maybe in the past been ashamed of, maybe in the past tried to hide, maybe in the past gone into denial about. We have a lot of people in our congregation who are 12-steppers, who are recovering drug and alcohol addicts or addicts of a different kind. And I have such respect for people who are in recovery in that way. Because what they did was choose to step out of denial and look at their lives. And look at all the ugly and look at all the beautiful and look at everything they have been doing and all their stinking thinking. I think America might now look a lot like someone who has hit bottom. And it is time for us to stop being in denial about what is. And so that because we come awake to our stinking thinking, we are able to heal it. So it's the wholeness. It's that beautiful oneness that we talk about so much. And yet, it is truly a time of great conflict. It is conflict within each of us as we learn, as we look out in the world and maybe don't see the world we thought we would. And it's a time of conflict out in the world. Part of what happens is that we want to feel like we are good people. There is a part of us that is the Christ that wants to express. And so at the human level, it looks like we want to be good people. We want to do the right thing. And so if somebody else is doing something else that challenges our right thing or right way of doing something, it feels like, it is not true, but it feels like it's an attack on oneness. It's an attack on our understanding of God. And we kind of forget that it's just our understanding of God that is being challenged. I promise you people, God does not need you to defend it. God does not feel attacked. God does not feel like it's messing up. It is not worried about what grade we're going to give it. The divine is the divine is the divine, and it stays that beautiful piece of love that we talked about at the top of our teaching symbol. But at the human level, we can get into lots of conflict around how it shows up. So there's a story I've told before. If you've heard it, just give me a minute. Where Ram Dass went to visit his brother. Now, Ram Dass actually came from an old New England family, the Alperts. And so him showing up in the world with the long beard and the beads and the flowing and the everything, the crazy hair, that was probably somewhat embarrassing to the family. But he was never really thrown out of the family. He was still given some support. And at one point he went to visit his brother, who happened, ironically, to be in a psychiatric ward. It's ironic because his brother was in a psychiatric ward, still wearing his three-piece suit and claiming to be the Christ. So when Ram Dass goes to visit him, he says, these people just don't understand that I am the Christ. And Ram Dass says, of course you are, and so am I. And his brother protests, no, you don't understand, I am the Christ. And Ram Dass wisely just said, and that's why you're in here and I'm out there. If we choose to deny the Christedness, if we choose to deny the Buddha nature of another person, not their opinion, you don't have to agree with their opinion, but another person, then we are out of touch with the capital R reality, which is one definition of insane. Ram Dass, for all he looked like he was crazy, was actually just speaking a higher truth. And so if you go out into the world and speak that higher truth, people might think you're nuts. It's okay. Let them. You'll be planting a seed for something that awakens in them. When their Christ consciousness is awake, they will recognize that truth. Or they'll come back to you and show you an even higher truth. So this is really where Science of Mind helps so much. This is where it is, we're so engulfed in and unable to be separated from the divine that it is safe to look at our thinking and say, is that really true? Do I really believe that? We always do our own work first. If we look out into the world and see conflict, it's our job to go within and see where we are conflicted, to see where we need to put that down. And we need to heal ourselves. And I guarantee you, as each of us do this, the world out there will look less and less conflicted. So we are able to go out into the world with this, if we have done our own work, with this idea that all is well and everybody we meet will be a Christ. That doesn't mean that we get to go out there and save people from themselves. The Christ, Jesus the Christ, the master teacher, worked with the people who needed him and made himself available to the least among us, as he would have said. But he didn't force healing on anyone. He didn't force his beliefs on anyone. If somebody didn't agree with him, he'd engage in conversation, but he didn't say, and now you're going to hell. What he said was, do it this way. Let me show you how it's done. To be a Christed being, you will know you're a Christed being, A, when everyone around you looks like a Christed being, and B, your presence in the world creates healing for people, creates a higher thought for people, creates peace for people. If there's one thing that doing all of this stuff via Zoom has taught me, it's the reminder that I used to know in my theater days, which is that when something is going sideways, it does no good to yell and scream about it or point it out. What we need to do is have each other's backs. So just as a couple of weeks ago, I was having trouble with my own connection, somebody else jumped in and said the words I needed to say. This week, we have some connection issues, but I can jump in and say the words that need to be said. I'm not rescuing anyone. I'm simply returning the favor to my brother or sister in Christ, who I absolutely depend on to speak truth when I cannot. So this morning, I actually started the day by saying, okay, God, you got to give me something, because, at this level, I have not got the words of wisdom. And so I flipped on Facebook to see if there was anything I should know about. And Michael Gott was doing his live talk. And he was the one who pointed out that if there is no fear, there is no need for courage. And so I'm thanking my brother Michael for that beautiful word that lifts me up. The other thing is, and this is actually how practitioners work, we don't go out into the world and tell other people how to be. We go up into the capital R reality and trust that that one mind is working through all of us. So it's really easy for me to go onto Facebook, and the only thing I'm going to find is Reverend Dr. Michael Gott doing his thing and doing it incredibly well, as he always does. That was Spirit speaking to me through my brother in Christ. And Spirit will speak to you that way too. This is how practitioners work. We can go into prayer knowing that what we're doing is lifting up into the one mind, where the truth of you is and has always been. So that whatever story you're telling me about sick and broken and disgusting and bad, whatever shadow side story you're giving me, I'm looking at, you might be living down here at the level of effect. I'm looking at you from up here. And I will know the truth for you until you know it for yourself, knowing that at some point someone's going to do that for me. It absolutely works, because that one mind is where everything is really created in the beginning. And so somebody who is a trained practitioner can pray into what we call prayer, into the one mind, know a greater truth, and it must take form according to the law of cause and effect in the client's life. What if we religious scientists made the United States of America our client? What if we all practice this teaching? Because we have the freedom to do that. We have massive freedom in spirit under the law to create a world that works for everyone. We have that freedom. And so you've heard me talk about Rule 303, which is a military thing. If you have the means, then you have the responsibility. The flip side of the coin of freedom is responsibility. And so if I hear somebody screaming at me about, their rights and their freedom, but they are not acting responsibly to take care of their brother and sister, to be there non-judgmentally for their brother or sister in Christ, I actually have to go within and do my own work, because I'm seeing something that looks unlike the divine, and that is mine to heal. If we go out into the world from this higher mindset, if we go out into the world from the idea that everyone I meet is the Christ, then I will be doing it somewhat more humbly than otherwise. I will be going out there and first asking my brother, my sister, what do you want? What do you need? And then I join them in agreeing that it's theirs. That freedom, that being seen, that awareness of their own divinity. They may not say it that way, but that is what I go and I ask. What they want. My brother and sister, what do you need? And how may I serve? There's a TEDx talk. An Italian gentleman talks about his early years in doing work around the world and feeding the hungry. And he learned a harsh lesson. See, he went out there and he taught them how to farm, and they had this beautiful farm going. He was so proud of his tomatoes. He's a good Italian. He knows how to grow tomatoes. He brought that to them and he gifted them with it. And they had this beautiful garden going. And he couldn't understand why there wasn't more enthusiasm, because they were creating food in a place that needed food. Well, the seasons changed. And there was a river going past them, and at the change of seasons, all the hippopotami came out of the river and ate the whole garden in one night. And what he said was, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen? What's going on here? You say this happens every year. Why didn't you tell me? And the response he got was, you did not ask. So if we can go out there saying, I want to be of service to the Christ in my brother or sister's body, that will be far more effective than going and trying to save anyone. We are responsible for our own thinking. We are responsible. I am not blaming, but we are responsible for the world that we live in. We are responsible for how our democracy works. I am always surprised that more people don't vote. People died so that we could vote. People continue to die so that we have that right, and yet for some reason we can't show up. In some cases, there are really good reasons. If you've got a 2-parent family and each parent is working 2 or 3 jobs, it's hard to go stand in line for 5 hours. And there are places where that is the truth in America. And what I absolutely know, is that God is still all there is. And God is still creating this world and this country. God is still bringing out the best in all of us, bringing out our wise men and women to speak, and we get to listen right now. We get to find out what it is our brothers and sisters need so that we may be one family, one great, beautiful, magnificent group of souls that are together and individually divine beings. Now that's just the truth. It's got almost nothing to do with the talk I wrote, but that's what Spirit brought me this morning, and therefore what I bring you. And what I know is that the tool I have that is most effective in creating this nation as a free nation, in creating this community as a loving community, is prayer. And so I choose to go to prayer right now, and you can join me in whatever way feels best for you. That there is, all you have to do is either open or close your eyes, or just sit there and take in the words and take them in as if you were saying them. I might use the word I, but I mean we. And I mean each individual you. And so from this place of high consciousness that the Christ within me always has had access to, I speak my word, remembering that God is still all there is, that there is a single power and presence in this universe, and no matter how many times I say it, it is still true. I awaken now. I remember now that I am part of this divine being, as are all of my brothers and sisters in the Christ. All of my brother and sister Buddhas, all of my friends and family around the world whose names and faces I have never seen. All of us, together and individually, are the faces of God. And God cannot be other than beautiful. And so I claim for all of us, for myself and for all of us, a rising up in our thinking, a rising up into a greater light and a deeper truth. The deeper truth of our oneness, the deeper truth that love is the truth between all souls, always has been and always will be. I call that into our shared and individual experience now at the level of effect, knowing that what I'm doing is standing witness to a spiritual truth and using the law of cause and effect to make it so. I am not creating or forcing anything into being. I'm just witnessing the truth and letting it be. Allowing it to be, allow it to be for everyone all the time. This is freedom. This is joy. This is power and peace. And I am so grateful to know that Spirit is all of that in, through, as, and for each and every one of us. And so gratefully, I just step out of the way and let Spirit do what Spirit's going to do, which is move into greater manifestation. If these words have landed in you as truth, I ask you to say with me, and so it is.